Hello, welcome to the program The Desk on Global TV. My name is Topsy Gimba, sitting in for my colleague Ramsey. The Deck comes to you this time where we look into issues on both sides. The stories that are leading in the newspapers, we look at them in the way they are presented and then add our voices to it or to them to see how best viewers who are watching us to become properly informed of the issues that are trending in the country. It's been quite very interesting to view my colleague in the person of Ubong Usoro. It's a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gimba.
How are you doing?
It's a pleasure joining you too on the program.
Yeah, sure. You're looking smart.
Thank you.
Nigeria is a country where so many things are really happening. And thank God we have become so used to some of those issues as Nigerians. We try as much as possible to meet up despite our challenges. And that gives us the strength to remain completely resilient, focused, and achievable. That's how Nigerians are even seen within and even outside the country. Don't you subscribe to that?
Right. Nigerians are very, like you mentioned, very passionate, very optimistic. Nigerians are very innovative and creative, right?
Yeah.
So it's the fact that the challenges that we faced in the country over time has made us stronger. The challenges has made us more adept to struggles, to challenges, and to coming out better.
Yeah.
So we've seen this time and time again, right? That Nigerians are very able to go through these pains and come out better.
Yeah.
So I think the challenges, in a way, there are challenges, but there are also opportunities.
Yeah,
because
sure.
there are a lot of opportunities in Nigeria. So yeah.
And that makes me, to go into, in the holy books, that's, in the holy book precisely, the Bible, the Holy Bible, it is said for a person to become a leader, he starts very poorly.
Right.
And if you look at this particular saying, it's actually very true. Why am I saying this? People who had earlier become leaders that would today see them and respect them in the history books were these people that suffered greatly and then they emerged victorious. Take, for instance, Moses in the Holy Bible. The mother had to abandon him in a small boat to float on the water, until he eventually became the person that was going to lead the Israeli, which this time they were called the Hebrews, out from Egypt.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same thing with David.
Yeah.
Do you get that kind of a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Even in Nigeria, if you look at Nigeria's history, you look at people like Ahmadu Bello, look at people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, you look at people. Nnamdi struggled to go through school, right? I did correspondence course at the time. It was struggle. It wasn't that easy for him. But at the end of the day, he established himself as an authority, especially when the former Eastern region is mentioned.
Yeah.
So challenges could come, but we have to keep persevering.
Honestly. And
that's the Nigerian spirit. For those of us who don't have security numbers, our social security number, outside Nigeria, once you are born, the country makes arrangements for you. Yeah. They know this is the number of people that will be coming in as the number of people that will be giving birth to population estimation. And we know, okay, so if we're having a population of 200 million people, how many hospitals should we have? How many persons can fall sick at the same time? They take all of these statistics and they work around it to make infrastructure that will actually cater for their individuals. But in Nigeria, it's not so.
Is that so?
So we wait for the problems to emerge and we work with the problems.
Quite frankly.
But in other places...
we are like students. You remember, particularly myself, when we were in school, you get to school, they will be teaching you, and until when the timetable for the exams will now be released, you now see you running helter-skelter to put yourself together. And again, you see in March, almost the best in the class.
Yeah, it wasn't yours in your generation. In my generation,
the same thing.
In school, the same thing, right? We wait for, the night we hear that exam timetable has been posted. I remember in my university days, that's when we become very serious, and books and all of that. So that's the same way that we've treated Nigeria. Nigeria has also treated us that way. Here we are where we are. We keep pushing, but you can't doubt that we are the greatest black nation in the world, right? With the most intelligent black people in the world. You can't talk about the black race and not talk about Nigeria. Our population is
it's only that we don't have an environment that are quite conducive enough to exploit who we are in ourselves. But as soon as we leave the shore of this country, you see us excelling almost the best in whichever country we might find ourselves.
In Nigeria, we've had people who stayed in Nigeria all through the pains, and they've made it in Nigeria.
Imagine.
Yes, as difficult as it is, right? The struggle it would have taken you to succeed outside Nigeria, it is almost double in Nigeria. But in this same policy gaps, in this financial instrumentation gaps, that for you to get facilities from institutions to fund your business, fund your innovation is very difficult. There are a lot of people who are in Nigeria and they are still making it, and they've done so well. I know a couple of, so there are still opportunities even in the country.
I agree with you very greatly, and that leads me to really why I came up with this prologue, the introduction of this program, is for us to understand the trajectory how this country is made. You remember when Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, then chairman INEC, a lot of allegations were leveled against him, either compromising certain things that needed to have been done properly, so that at the end of the day, the country will emerge with a very clean elections. But he served, to me, as a person, as a Nigerian, who closely monitored his activities when then he was in the office. A lot of things that I see today were mostly introduced by him, trying to see how we can pull out from, so-called analog system of doing election to the automated one, even though he didn't achieve it so much the way it should be.
Right.
And so at the time he left, the federal government saw the need of really appointing another person who would now take over that chair and then pilot the affair of elections again for another set of 5 years. And that's the person of Professor Joash Ojo Amopitan. When his appointment was announced officially, people were like, some jubilated because they have known much about him. He has a very good track record academically. You remember he was an academic, what do you call it?
A lecturer in the
university, and then became vice chancellor of the academics, deputy vice chairman, vice chancellor academics.
Academics.
And I still know him very well when then he was a student in the university of the just where he served there before getting his appointment. I made to understand that when he was graduating in the faculty of law, he almost packed all the prizes that was meant to be given to students as at that time, because he was too intelligent and excelled very well. Until today, he's respected, and he's one of the lead counsels when elections of 2023 were announced and the president was pronounced. Litigation started, and they employed his services to defend the president. He's one of the lead counsel in that to ensure. He was this person that came up with the idea that the procedure was admissible, but the outcome is dismissible. That was the phrase he framed that eventually threw out the entire procedure concerning whether or not President Bola Tinubu won the election. That's exactly what we saw in this man. And so, as a lawyer, as a son, as a very reputable person in the academics, he appeared before the Senate committee. He appeared before the Senate Committee on Electoral Matters, and eventually they presented the report to the Committee of the Whole. Committee of the Whole, either in the House of Reps or in Senate, it means the entire sitting of the lawmakers will be there. So that they now invited him to come for the screening, and you saw him. He's been trending all over the social media and even the traditional ones, where he defended his position why he's appointed to become the next chairman. And so I'm so glad that at the end of the day, despite some of these questions, challenges that the senators put before him, he still defended some of these issues until the best came out of him and eventually approved to take up the appointment of the chairman of the commission.
Right, absolutely. Before I talk about George Amopita, Professor, I'd like to talk about Mahmood Yakubu, also Professor. Professor Mahmood came in 2015, right? And just after that election that was done by Professor Tahiru Jega, that brought in the president at that time, late former President Muhammadu Buhari. And he served 2 terms, 2015 to 2025, a 5-year term each. And by law, he's done the limits that can be done by the constitution that governs INEC. But let's not forget the fact that Professor Mahmood Yakubu brought IREF. We didn't have the independent reporting election portal before. He brought IREF, he brought BVAS, right? He brought election online transmission. And I'm going to explain where it's different. And he also expanded our CBR, our continuous voter registration, to about 90 million before he left. Those are massive investments. Those are massive achievements also. And those are massive enlightenment of our process, our electoral process, because we know that with the BVAS, it became very easy. We know the card readers gave a lot of issues. It was good when it was proposed, but in action, we saw that the card readers gave a lot of issues at that time where Professor Tahiru Jega was. And even the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, in his own polling booth at Ojokbo in Bayelsa State, for 3 times, the card reader didn't read his card. And it was glaring. That's why some persons said that Goodluck Jonathan had the premise to have said the election was faulty. Because if it happened to him on the spot, the media was there. Right, so for the 2 elections, 2019 elections and 2020 elections, I covered those elections in Cross River State. And I saw that those elections were largely the will of the people as to how the people voted. People were not coerced to vote. Yes, there were places where people were told, if you vote for our party and you come back, we'll give you something. Right, yeah. And it was done, and even some security agencies were there, so it wasn't hidden. So we can say it. There are even pictures and videos on social media to prove that. But largely, Nigerians voted their minds. The era of ballot box snatching, because of the bringing of the IREF and the BVAS, was long gone. People didn't go out to snatch ballot boxes again because it doesn't make sense. You only cancel the election in that area, and let it be that God helps you, your opponent or the person you are collecting the ballot box for was the person winning. You are giving your opponent an advantage in the other area. So these were massive reforms. That's the right word. Massive reforms that were brought into INEC. But are we where did Professor Mahmood Yakubu leave INEC where INEC was supposed to be? I would say no. But did he do well in his capacity? Absolutely yes. Because we can't solve these issues in one day. We keep evolving, we keep learning, we keep bringing technology. And like President Tinubu said one of the days, that when we talk about fighting corruption, the best way is to make sure that we automate our systems. That I don't need to go to pay money to a civil servant. I could do my thing and maybe get the stamp without necessarily needing to visit the office to pay at the counter. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Yeah. Because at that point, it's easy for people to manipulate. But if I'm paying for a service online, nobody manipulates my service. I just pay what I'm supposed to pay. So trying to seal those gaps, and President Buhari did something with this treasury single account when he brought it in, and all of that. But let's move to Professor George Amopita now. The 2020 election, and let me even say this, during that Senate hearing, Senator Seriake Dickson asked Professor George Amopita, and we asked him, were you part of the President Tinubu 2023 legal team? He said before the Nigerian Senate he was never part of the legal team. And I've not seen any confirmation to the fact that he was part of the legal team. He said in the Senate that he was not part of the legal team. So these are just mere connotation and mere conjectures that people have brought up so that they will make the man look bad from the beginning, right? The opposition could bring a lot of things, and assuming without conceding that he was part of the legal team, as a lawyer, he has a right to do his job, just like asking a doctor, did you treat President Tinubu? Did you treat President Buhari? You now start going looking at the clientele of the medical doctor. This is a service he renders. He has the professional backing to render that service to anybody who approaches him. So if peradventure the legal team of the president had seen that he has the ability to speak for them and they approached him, why not if not?
Yeah.
But in this case, the professor was not part of that legal team. So the
in whatever perspective,
the argument does not even
in whatever perspective one sees it, as much as, like you rightly mentioned, this is a sound person. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Any other person can decide to seek for his services, and if he offers, I think there's nothing wrong. The only concern, most of these senators or probably politicians, they don't just want to say, again, a person who probably served or defended the interests of the present administration when then it was sworn in, now becoming one of the persons that will now, be managing a very, very big institution that will determine the outcome of election going forward.
And that's why he said, that's why he told them, he told them in the Senate that he was not part of the legal team. And they don't have the evidence to back up that.
That is the thing, because one thing with a lawyer, it's just to use a technical phrase or a particular word to knock you down. Like I gave you an instance of how he was said to have defended some of these issues, that the process to determine whether or not the elections was mad, or maybe mad with fraud or whatever you might call it, or malpractices, that can be seen to be correct. Do you get? But at the end of the day, it's not permissible that at the end of the day considered to be true. So it's not going to be considered as issues that will be looked into in any court. And so that brought about the complete conclusion to the entire procedure.
Because the man himself has said he was not part. He has said it, he was not part of that legal team.
I understand what you are saying. I'm not disputing what you are saying. But again, it's one thing for you to really know that a sound lawyer can argue black to become white or white to become black, depending with the way he sees it. And that's the way it is. Because he's a trained...
Absolutely. That's his job.
That's just like a soldier. That this gun you see is not meant to shoot animals. It's meant to kill human beings. Right. That's what they are. Yeah. A lawyer defends whatever is considered defensible. That's how it is.
That's his job. But let's look at this, what he brings to the table. I think that is what Nigerians should be more interested in.
Let me just add up to you, Obon. Like you rightly painted the picture of how, Professor Yakubu handled, some of these issues relating to election, that today we see some of the introductions he came up with are considered to be very, very important. But again, there are so many things that brought about that can be counterproductive going forward. As a matter of fact, if you see the way these beavers were introduced, the intention behind was to ensure that you don't manipulate results. One, you're going to say biomodal accreditation to determine voters' system, to determine who voted, who did not vote. It will be suicidal for you to come back and say, probably somebody must have used, because 2 + 2, can it give you 5? Mathematically.
Absolutely.
It's only when a lawyer can argue to prove that it could be 5. So if a machine is deployed to bring about, to lessen the effect of what we have been arguing upon then, before the coming of these technologies into the system, and then at the end of the day, in the presence of the technology, we are still messing up with the entire process. Does it pay at all? It doesn't. And so that's exactly what we are saying. If beavers were used in the election and it was meant to reduce the intensity of the crisis that will often encounter by the time the results are being torn over, only for you to paint the picture as if we never use beavers, and that means we are not going anywhere.
I think we have to be clear, because about electronic transmission. Electronic transmission in the that electoral act that some senators are seeking to repeal now, some House members and all of that, it wasn't electronic announcement. They are two different things. We have to be clear with these terminologies. What the BVAS does is to accreditate that this is the person that is going
We have not gone. I've not gone to the issue of either transmitting the result or whatever. I'm talking about
the beavers now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's look at it this way. Look at it this way, Ubong. Beavers, they say you either use your thumb to identify that this thumb is meant for Ubong.
Yeah.
And if you don't have fingers, it takes your face. Why were these processes built up in this system? It was aimed to eliminate. Will it be correct if these systems will now fail you and then you come up to say you can now collate results manually?
Right. Let me talk
so that tomorrow nobody comes. That's what I was telling you.
Yeah. Let me explain what happened. So this is it. When with the beavers you get accredited, you
use your thumb
with your thumb,
or you look at the camera.
You look or whatever means, and the system sees that this is the right person that is going to do this vote.
Fine.
Then you go ahead and do your voting.
Fine.
But in special cases, because let's be sincere, there are many areas in Nigeria that does not have internet coverage. There are many areas that could face difficulties with this accreditation. So this is what we do. There's a printout already that before the elections, INEC will paste it in different locations, your polling booths. So with that printout, you are supposed to, when INEC post these things, I think months before the election. So an announcement is being given that people should go and check if their names or faces are there. So you check, mine was in a primary school. You check, you see your face, you see your name, you know that you are in the polling list of that polling booth. So the same list is the same list that will be there virtually. The same list that INEC prints out manually is the same list they have virtually, right? Yeah. So that in case it fails, they can now fall back to this manual to check, because I saw a lot of persons whose thumb were not captured immediately and all of that, so that at the end of the day, we don't miss out anybody, right? Would we have done it better? Well, I think it's a gradual process. If you ask me, I'll say that it's not the question. It's not going to be thoughtful to just wake up and say let's totally eliminate. Yes, we are.
Now, let me ask you this question. If that which we see to be glitches that brought about what people are complaining in the 2023 election, now that the new sheriff is in town, that's the Senate has approved the appointment of Professor George Ojo to become the INEC chairman. Assuming he gets there and he will do like the way the immediate past chairman did in the subsequent election, that's 2023, will you say we are progressing?
I'm even trying to understand.
This open-ended question does not actually say whatever you say is wrong or correct.
What did the last chairman do? You know, a lot of persons blamed and say, was Mahmood Yakubu, let's even start with it. Was Mahmood Yakubu the state electoral resident officer? He was not. He only announced results that were brought by Nigerians, which we failed to hold accountable, and a lot of times we always
I disagree with you.
Just a minute,
sir. I disagree with you completely, man.
Just a minute, sir. He was the one in charge. Absolutely, the buck stops at this table. Yeah. But away from that, we have Nigerians that were appointed by Nigeria as the state electoral commissioners in all 36 states plus the FCT. So what they did was bring results to Abuja. Mahmood was not in Akure, was not in Uyo. So these results were brought and signed. Remember that these results were already validated at the polling booths. We'll move to the wards, we'll move to the local government, we'll move to the state level, and be validated by members of all of these political parties. Yeah. And this result will be brought to Abuja. So Mahmood only sees the result that was validated by Nigerians. So what he did was the announcement of results that were brought by Nigerians.
No, look at it this way, Ubong. This process that brought about a result that you saw turning in from various localities until they could get to the city center, that's at the international conference center that was then used as a collation center, which he used those results, collated, and then he announced. The question here is, at the build-up to this election, there were so many media propaganda that the INEC officials, particularly Barrister Festus Okoye, who eventually retired soon after the election, I remember he called journalists. I happen to be one of these persons that attended, that he now said, we have now found a magic wand that will now put off whatever that has to do with the election crisis in Nigeria, with the coming of beavers. And he went further to tell us that already INEC has already produced a runoff ballot papers that they have foreseen that this election 2023, that will be runoff. There might be two persons will be knocking head together side by side. And so again, money was allocated to produce what? To produce what? To produce ballot paper, aside from the ballot papers that would be used or had been used, or rather would be used for the elections at that time, before they could not determine whether or not there will be runoff election. Another millions and millions and millions of naira set aside for that one, and even use.
Right, we will talk
only at the end of the day, only at the end of the day, this money expended for the production of the ballot papers for runoff were not even used.
And we're not retired.
I'm not even challenging whether they are retired or not. I don't want to tell you, how sometimes they use propagandist way of life to tell Nigerians things that possibly will not even work.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, we keep following, and then you will now fall in, you hit the rocks. Right. Without getting the result.
For me,
and I'm afraid, like this man now, that the professor that has been screened and approved by the committee of the whole, I hope by the time he gets there, again, to be talking about issues relating to what we should be expecting in 2027 election, probably far more better.
Yeah, Professor George Amopitan has already stated, yesterday he stated it, that he's going to order an audit of the 2023 elections. And for me, that's starting on a good note, right? Because you have to know where we got it wrong, so we could make improvements. I'm not saying that the 2023 election was without fault, but I'm saying that it was an improvement from prior elections, because this is an election. So you see, a lot of times some Nigerians forget this is an election that the national chairman of the APC, the current president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has never lost Lagos State since 1999, he's not lost in that state before. Is it from AD to being in AC to being in ACN and all of that? APC, he has a grip of Lagos State. But for the first time ever, we saw President Bola Ahmed Tinubu lose in Lagos State in that 2023 election. In that 2023 election, we saw the national chairman of the APC, Abdullahi Ganduje, lose in Kano. That's an election, right? So we've not seen this kind of things before. It wasn't, you could not have even imagined that you could go to places like Lagos and win election when you are not a PDP. Even a PDP could not win Lagos for the many years, even when they were in power at the federal level. But a party that was relatively unknown, Labour Party at the time, went there and won election in the president's home state. And so those are some of the metrics we also compared election. Have we made progress? Yes. What this teaches Nigerians is that going forward, it doesn't matter if it's a president state, if it's a senator state, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Kanu was won, APC national chairman state, it was won by an opposition party. Lagos State, the state of the president was won. So that election actually brought possibility. There was a remarkable improvement in our electoral system.
I quite appreciate what you are really saying. But by the time they realized that indeed he lost in the state, when it came to local government election, what did you see? Or subsequent election in that state, what did you see? Still using the same system. But at the end of the day, the party that the governor is sitting on turned out to be the party that nearly everybody won. I just want you to understand. So it is possible. Yeah. It is possible that so many things that we need to put in place.
Right.
Politicians are supposed to be.
Election. We must also note that this election was an improvement.
And I'm not disputing. I'm not disputing. But again, there's still more room to be corrected.
And that's our work.
Because usually we're talking about if we spend money, humongous amount of money for a system that, and again, you'll be complaining. Then we need to take it gradually so that at the end of the day, we don't spend. Will you want to carry firewood in your head and only go and burn it and carry ashes? It doesn't make sense.
I'm trying to.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Are
you saying we would not have made? We've not even made enough investment in our electoral system. Mr. Gimba, we've not made enough investment.
This analysis we're making, Ubong, is for the fact that we have a new sheriff in town.
Absolutely.
That's professor who is going to take the seat of this particular commission. So there is a need for us to really talk much, and so that he will actually look into the books and understand basically how to go about in solving some of these problems. So that at the end of the day, we don't build more hopes and then you don't get the results, which I believe wouldn't be. The question here is, in states today, local government chairman, just ordinary local government chairman, or either the governor and his state and the local government chairman in a number of states he controls, you will discover that the entire formation of the chairman in that state will be for that party that the state governor, writes on it, and that becomes a problem. Right. So we need to really introduce certain things that at the end of the day, we don't just be talking about a system that will not work and you keep spending money, you live and die without any improvement. Your child comes up, takes the same position, he lives and dies without any improvement and becomes a cycle of almost unending. That is the problem. I don't want it to occur.
Right. I don't know if we still have time to stay on this topic, but let me answer you about the state and the local government. This is what happens at the state level. Election in Nigeria, sadly, takes a lot of investment. But not only in Nigeria, election around the world, financial investments and the likes, right? Of recent, we've had local governments that have been won by relatively maybe even unknown political parties, depending on the strength. Remember that some of these political parties, they don't have the spread at the state level. They don't have, you can't win election without structure. Structures are people. Some of these political parties, there are some political parties today that if you need people from every ward, they have at least 5 individuals from every ward that can mobilize for them. So you go to a political party in a state that does not have a party office in local government except at the state level. It does not have members at the ward level, and you come out maybe 3 months to the election. How are you going to campaign and win?
You can't.
Some of these women that vote, most of the people that vote, they are already attached to some symbols. There are women that will just vote the umbrella, and no matter who is there, they will just vote the umbrella. There are women that will vote the APC. No matter, it doesn't matter who is the candidate, because psychologically they have been taught to do this. I see some of these politicians that we say, they just win everything. It's a lot of
not psychological. Most time they were coerced.
Some is psychologically,
some coerced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some induced by money. But some is because they are used to that political party over time. So they just say, which political party? Umbrella, and they vote. This is they vote. It's chicken, maybe Abga, and they vote, and the likes, depending on the region that you are coming from. So before we start talking about this politics, it was only one political party that swept the whole state. What is the place of the other political parties in those states? Do they have the spread? Do they have the power? Because you can't see APC and PDP have structures.
Sure.
So if you want to depose them, you must go.
Let's give him some things that he needs to do when he gets there.
Yeah.
First of all, let him try as much as possible. Just like the way area council election is being conducted by the headquarters of the INEC. It's only FCT that INEC has the prerogative of power to conduct area council election. In other states, it's been done by governors.
Yeah.
Now, let's see how best we will take over. Since he's a lawyer, and a sound one for that matter, let him come up with the reforms that at the end of the day, the headquarters, the headquarters of the INEC will be supervising the entire election at the state, at the local level. Unlike leaving it for the state electoral commissioners in the state to conduct that. At the end of the day, myself and you will become chairman of one political party. If there are 42 state local government, all of them will be either one foreign party like that, without anybody having access to winning. You begin to imagine whether or not they were doing it in a cemetery or where people are living. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any opposition that will win the election. That becomes a very big problem.
Right. I'm still challenging that point. I understand what you're saying.
I'm only trying, no.
But still challenging. You know that in the most advanced democracy, which is the US.
It's only in FCT that you see PDP, APC, whatever will be winning, because the conduct of the election was done by the national headquarters of the INEC.
But even in the most advanced
so that's the way I want it to be done.
No, even in the most advanced democracy, which is the US, there are states that we call them the blue states. There are states that we call them the red state. For instance, Texas is a Republican state and is well known. It's very difficult for people who are from the other. In fact, in the last maybe 20 years, other political parties have not won any election in those states. There are states that for the past 50 years, other political parties have not won elections in those places. So it's not only to Nigeria. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Yes, if your party does not have the required structure.
Give him a task going forward. What will you advise him to do?
I think this is the right thing that he has said, audit. There should be, like he has mentioned, there should be an audit of that system, the election. A total audit, uncompromising audit of the system. And when that audit is done, recommendations will be made. I mean, a lot of people talk about electoral reform, electronic transmission of votes. See, we have to think this thing well. We have to do wide consultation. There should be consultation among the groups, the youth groups, everybody should be brought to the table, because Nigeria is so diverse. Yeah, you cannot totally please everybody. No matter what you do, people will still... Is there any president in Nigeria that everybody can come and say he did very well? People will speak from tribal sentiment. People will speak from ethnic sentiment. There are a lot of sentiment, political party sentiments that will come in. But just try to do your best. So after this auditing of the entire 2020 electoral system and the entire INEC, who are the member of staff of INEC, how did they get there? There should be an entire overall of the system, not clearing everybody, but auditing the system to know that there are no sabotages inside the system. And I think that would be a great place to start.
Yes, all right. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. That's just what we expect him to do by the time he gets there. Recently, again, today precisely, the ASU, Academic Staff Union of Universities, met with the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TETFund, and the person of Senator Muntari Dandutse from Katsina South. He's the one chairing that particular committee in the Senate, where they met, and then they were like, currently we are on warning strike. University lecturers are on warning strike for 2 weeks. They are of the opinion that there is a need for them to go back to the classrooms, because students is likely going to affect the educational system of this country if they are allowed to continue. But again, strikes are not precisely, they're only meant to bring about a result where there's failure in negotiation. When the negotiations are not quite very correct, that's when you strike. But then don't give results to what you want. They serve like a pressure to those who are considered to be the person in charge or persons in charge of the system, to know that some fundamental things are wrong in the system and they require to be addressed. That's why they come up with strike. And this strike, like the one where they have embarked upon, like the ongoing strike, the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TETFund are suggesting there is a need for them to go back. But the president of ASU, in the person of Professor Christopher Piwana, is saying that he has to go back to meet with the members of ASU to see whether or not they will go. But again, there's a meeting will still be holding maybe over the weekend, precisely maybe tomorrow or Sunday, all the way to Monday and Tuesday. I don't know, but that's exactly what it is. Do you see them actually accepting the proposal made by the Senate so that they will go back to classroom after the warning strike?
Yeah, I think let me start by commending the Senate, right, for trying to intervene in this particular matter of urgent importance, because education is very important. Somebody said, I could judge where your country is going to by the investment you make in education, right? And as a country, I think we've not been very deliberate towards our educational system. Maybe from 1970s or late 80s, after the second generation universities came, right? We've not been so deliberate in improving our educational system. We've not been so deliberate in improving the standard and quality of our education. So because of that, we have strike becomes very often in our system, right? I understand the grievances of ASUU. They are germane. They are for me. I'm not. It is not from a place of hate for country. It is from a place of love, desire to see Nigeria compete favorably with its counterparts in the East Africa, with its counterparts in Southern Africa, like South Africa and the rest of the country, educationally, right? So there are a lot that we could do, but also, let's look at education since this government came into power. We must give it to this government compared to the previous government. They've done better in education. Have they done as much as we would have expected them? Maybe no, but they've done better. Remember,
I concur with you.
They release. I know there have been 2 trenches of release that have been done, 140 billion and all of that. Trying to, and the president in his campaign promise was very deliberate to say, I don't want ASUU to go on strike in my tenure, right? He said that very clearly.
And he's trying on that aspect.
Yes, and with NEL fund coming in, students can get loans. People could say political things about it, but I know students who didn't need to know anybody. They have gotten those loans to pay school fees. All right, just trying to measure up our educational system so people don't drop out of school. And right, but these are problems that have been here before this APC administration. A lot of these problems that we're having with ASUU are problems that started as far back as 2006, 2005, right? Renegotiation, salary allowance, and academic allowance. A lot of these issues started way back, right? But this is where we are today. You are the president today, and you know that Nigeria has challenges that did not emanate from you. But you have to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So what do we do to solve the problem? One is consultation and speaking. We must not stop talking, right? The Minister of Education, the House Committee on Education, the Senate Committee on Education must keep talking to ASUU and give them a reliable and deliberate plan. ASUU too they are very understanding.
Yeah, sure.
They understand what is going on. So they will understand. So if you are telling ASUU, okay, ASUU says we have 600 billion that will be paid to us, you tell them, okay, the government can pay you all of this money at once. But we can pay in trenches. We can do 50 million every month. After all, we have stopped subsidy. Let's use the money from subsidy now and invest in education. We talked about the fact that subsidy was eating Nigeria dry, and the monies from subsidy will be invested in critical sectors of our economy. And education, is there any sector of the economy that is as important as education? There is absolutely none.
Yeah, sure.
Right, so this money should be taken from the money that we used to support our forex. We stopped and we opened up. Now we have open markets, right?
Yeah.
Let's use those monies and put it back to education. Whatever is the grievances of ASUU should be sorted out. But also ASUU as a union. Strike must not be, it becomes, because this
kind of thing.
INEC chairman, it becomes maybe a tradition that any ASUU chairman that comes, I beg your pardon, must go on strike. We should endeavor to run unbroken academic system. We've done that with our democracy, give or take. We've done it with our democracy now for 26 years. Yes, we have tussle, but we've run this democracy since 1999.
Yeah.
Can we have that with our educational system? Where for 10 years, for 20 years, we can have unbroken educational system. Not this gradual strike here, strike there.
Okay, time is no longer on our side, but there's a need again. We should tell our politicians not be too flamboyant in the public, so that these professors should not be seeing them and start complaining. Because these are people that they taught in schools, and they found themselves to become politicians, and today they are driving, these fantastic cars, living a flamboyant life, taking their children to overseas trips and things like that. These professors are watching, so that they don't, because they will sit down and see how they live their lives, and they'll say, but this guy, I taught him the university, see the way he lives his life. Therefore, there is a need for me to ask for more. And that's why you see these strikes are coming up. But again, not about themselves, but equally the environment where students receive lectures. They are equally very poor. They are not too friendly enough.
Yeah, so I attended a federal university, so I understand very well.
That is it.
Those days at the University of Uyo, we had these classes that were called GST classes,
Yeah.
general studies, something, right? When we have a lot of students who
Come out for one particular course unit at a point.
Yes, I just knew that if I go, I'm standing at the back.
But you'll be peeping from the window to listen to lecturers.
It was that for my departmental courses, we had good lecture hall with even
which means there's a need for improvement.
It was only for those general courses, right? So there is need for serious infrastructural development. But also, if you go to our universities and look at the work TED Fund is doing, look at the work the federal government, there's been also massive improvements, right? So let's balance it.
Yeah, sure. So we would have discussed about the defection of Diri Due or Due Diri from the governor of Bayelsa State, who had just left APC, who had just left PDP, so to speak, to join APC. And he gave a pathetic situation why he is leaving PDP to become a member of the All Progressives Congress. I never expected him to do that, but here we are seeing that because so many of these governors today, they are no longer in the parties they found themselves to become governors. They have they are beginning to leave. In all of them have left to join the ruling party, that's APC. And so it becomes a sad story in this country. If we continue in that formula, and then it means there wouldn't be very strong opposition. Take, for instance, in the entire Southeast and that of the South-South, virtually like nothing is left again for any other political party. PDP is gradually like cancer that spreads all over the body of a human being that suffers the disease. That's exactly what we are seeing today with this APC eating all the entire system in this country. At the end of the day, nobody says anything, and then we are running into one-party system in this country that everything the president will do becomes sacrosanct. And that's where the problem is. Look at this Diri, who I never expected him. I know him one-on-one. I have had the opportunity to interview him live on radio when he was a member House of Representatives, remember? And finally found himself to become a senator and eventually becoming the governor like the way he is, or still in PDP, a very strong advocate of PDP ideologies. But I don't know what has actually entered his brain. He now just left. And no wonder the Honorable Senator Henry Dixon Siraki, said he was actually disappointed with the action of the governor that has just found himself romancing himself with the All Progressives Congress. But that is quite very unfortunate, really.
Right.
Quite very unfortunate.
For me, in politics, let's start with being a human being before we even talk about politicians. As a human being, you have a fundamental right of association. Is one of those rights that you have. Clearly, you have that right as a human being, right? So he has the right to express his right of association, yes. Associate with people that and with associations that can take him to where he wants to go. But there's a question of morality on the other side. Our politicians, yes, you have this right, but the moral compass, you came on board with the ticket of the PDP. For me, I think it is morally wrong to get into a position with one ticket, a ticket of a party, and leave the party halfway. Because what you've just done is almost like destroying the party. So for me, it is the moral aspect of it. I think about it.
And that's
politicians think about morality. That's the question.
And that's why it becomes a fundamental thing for this present INEC chairman to start thinking of how to reform the system. If you leave the political party, you are actually not going to be that particular person.
It's not about the INEC chairman. INEC chairman does not have that power. It's about
the time is no longer on our side.
It's about senators and those who are in the House of Representatives. They must be able to put all of these things.
It's not left for Professor Joas Ojo Amupitan to say how best he will address some of these issues going forward. So nobody takes it for granted, Abi?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dimba.
Yes. Well, that's how far we can go on The Desk and Global TV. Of course, we've been speaking about Senate screening Professor Joas Ojo Amupitan and the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund met this afternoon with the ASU leadership. And then the leaving of the governor of Bayelsa to join APC has become a concern. Well, these are some of the issues we tended to talk, and we did a little we can. The program will come into you some other time. My name again is Topsy Gimba. Like I said at the opening, that indeed I was really sitting in from my colleague Ramsey. Stay tuned. Don't go away.